Mr Speaker.
David Clendon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to offer a short contribution to this bill. I'm not a lawyer. I've never aspired to be a lawyer, I must say, but have taken some advice on this. And I can say that based on what I've heard, the drafter of the bill, Mr Bennett, has proven himself to be a somewhat unusual member, which may not be news to some people. I understand that to many law students and indeed lawyers, tort law is something that encourages them to run screaming from the room. Mr Bennett, by all accounts, enjoys this thing, so good on him. We're told it is a convoluted area of law, a difficult area of law. The Greens are supporting this legislation because it does seem to address a real issue, a real opportunity to do better. Something, again, which is a surprise in this bill, that it is a national member's bill that is providing a substantive, useful piece of legislation, something we haven't seen much of in recent offerings from National Party members' bills. And let's not talk about missing suitcases. So there is having said that, we are supporting this bill. The question has been raised to ask that arguably it's not particularly a good mechanism for changing tort law, a member's bill. Arguably it's something that should perhaps be part of an overall review of the law to take a broader look that a government bill might be more appropriate. The point's always also been made this is a very simply drafted piece of legislation, and that in itself is often a significant virtue. It's something that can't be said about a lot of our statute book. But again, there's just a very small red flag has been raised to ensure that the simplicity of the drafting of this bill doesn't cause problems further down the track, that doesn't cause people to trip over. One of the complexities, I understand it, of tort law, or one of the differences perhaps, is that judgments tend to be based more on precedent, decisions that have been made by other judges rather than on statute, which in my mind at least, my non-lawyer mind, would suggest that it's something more of a moving target than something that is grounded in a piece of statute. And for that reason, arguably, is somewhat more difficult for judges to come to grips with. Certainly it is an area that bears some investigation. Anything that can simplify, clarify, reduce the amount of time that judges spend on a particular case is a good thing. Our courts are at least busy and often overly busy. Anything we can do to progress matters through the courts more quickly, more efficiently, and get good justice outcomes has got to be a good thing. If this bill contributes to that, then so be it. Mr Bennett, arguably somewhat immodestly, has noted that at least one law firm has said some good things about his legislation, notes that Australia, Canada and England have gone down this route already, albeit in a slightly different way. The models are not entirely comparable, but they have made some effort to cut through the inevitable tangle when you're endeavouring to decide which court, which country a particular matter should be addressed in. Clearly, when you're going to have significant interests on the opposing sides, and I suspect very often in these matters there'd be quite a lot of money slushing around as well in order to fund the argument and to extend it. So it's a good thing, I argue, that it is happening. Another law firm made commentary on this bill, and they just highlighted a bit of a cautionary note, I guess, for businesses that for companies that are doing business overseas where these matters arise, where disputes arise, if the decision is that a case will be heard in another country, it would most certainly be in their interest to make sure they understand tort law in that country, because New Zealand law will have no influence. So, sir, in conclusion, simply to say that here we are somewhat surprised and, shall I say, pleased a little that a national members bill has come through with some substance that might affect a useful and positive change in legislation. The only other point that was made was there was some concern particularly about intellectual property for Māori, that there could be situations or circumstances where this legislation could potentially shade that a little, but I'm sure that's something that the very good minds on the J&E committee will resolve in good time, and we look forward at this point to supporting the bill. Thank you.